Yeah, almost feels like that was a completely pointless plot line. Also, yeah, I'm keeping the Christmas stuff up because unlike the creators of the show, I know how to look at a calendar.
We opened this week with Hikaru contemplating on the fact that she was the only member of her team to not have achieved her twinkle imagination yet, ignoring the fact that she came close to it back in episode 35, but hey, that's what happens when you have so many different writers on this show. Though to be fair, she also seemed to be a little down about the fact that her team was slowly starting to go their separate ways. Meanwhile, the Noto Raiders HQ, Tenjo had apparently been transferred into the next phase of their plans. A phase that, for reasons we'd see later in the episode, our cue ball antagonists wanted no part in. Thus, Capard asked for one last chance, which Darkness graciously allowed while angrily squinting his eyes?
Whoa, did Snake Man just show a legit emotion? Well, it's a little thing, but alright, the show has my attention now. And it's gone.
Back on Earth, Hikaru and Lala's class had found the two and wanted to invite them to the ice rink. Or, to be more precise, they wanted to invite the aliens to join in on their fun, literally leaving Hikaru out in the rain. With nothing much else to do, she decided to pay a visit to Ryo at the observatory. Oh yeah, kinda forgot this old geezer was a part of the show, wasn't he? While helping design some posters, Hikaru recollected the first lecture that she had ever received at this observatory. And just like my own Astronomy 101 class, one of the first things they learned was about the Summer Triangle, an asterism formed by the stars ARUTAIRU, DENEBU, and BEGA.
I remember it because I often associate it with both one of my favorite secondary writers and anime ending themes ever.
These stars were also somewhat mentioned all the way back in episode 22 with ARUTAIRU and BEGA representing the literal star-crossed lovers. And on top of that, the three stars are each a part of bigger constellations, Aquila, Lyra, and Cygnus. And depending on the interpretation, they could represent different things, which of course led into Hikaru's hobby. In her mind, she was Deneb looking over the star-crossed lovers of her parents. And she chose a good star, as Deneb is a supergiant that can be seen year-round even when the other stars of the Cygnus constellation aren't visible outside of summer. Though that also tied to some painful symbolic irony, as she too would soon be alone with her friends going their separate ways. Ryo cheered her up with, honestly, a really good line. And as it turned out, he too was a Deneb who remained the same while his friends, Hikaru's grandparents, went down their own path. Really nice subtle direction here, by the way, as this stare could imply Ryo might have had something for Hikaru's grandmother, can't say for sure.
This week's writer was once again Murayama, so as usual it's good world and lore building, even though it doesn't quite fit with Hikaru, but I'll save talking about that for the closing thoughts, because I've got a lot to say.
Anyway, after leaving the observatory, Hikaru ran into an old friend of hers. With Darkness, having only given him one last chance, Capard went all in, even using his own warped imagination to form his weapon this week.
So wait, how is he even still there, or even maintain consciousness? Is he only using a small portion of his warped imagination? Because if that's the case, shouldn't it be one of his weakest weapons ever instead of his strongest?
The answer is don't think about it.
Alright, sure.
Anyway, regardless of its questionable creation, Capard still managed to put his weapon to good use in one of the better fights of the season. Sure, the animation was stiff as usual, but we also got some pretty awesome moments right out of DBZ, with Capard launching an H2O spirit bomb, and Hikaru appropriately playing the part of Kid Buu and then later Yamcha. In the middle of their fight, Capard began recollecting his very troubled past.
And I'll be frank, this is the absolute best part of this episode.
We already got the gist of Capard's backstory back in the Halloween episode, but the way he delivered it here was just gripping. Between Hosoya Yoshimasa's great delivery to cutting between the flashbacks and Capard's despair-filled expression, it's near impossible not to feel bad for this guy. It's just too bad it got cut short by this MLP reject, though thankfully Capard was just as tired of the OP fairy and just spirit bombed both of them. Hikaru managed to shield Fuwa, but as I mentioned, she became a Yamcha.
Yes!
Thank you so much, Kapard. I've wanted someone for the longest time to point out Hikaru's platitudes. Anyway, the rest of her team soon joined the fray, but while he wanted to fight Hikaru alone, Kapard didn't mind sinking his notaries on them. However, the true main character, Lala, still tried to protect her friend with less than successful results. Hikaru blamed herself for not finding her twinkle imagination, but as has always been the case with this show,
I would suggest that we could make a drinking game out of every time someone says that phrase in this show, but at the same time, I don't want to encourage death by alcohol poisoning.
Anyway, Lala literally stood up for her friends, saying that she didn't speak platitudes, even though she totally does, and pointed out how their classmates had accepted her in spite of her being from a different planet. Yeah, remind me again, whose Twinkle Imagination episode is this supposed to be? Ultimately, she said Hikaru should just be Hikaru, like how DENEBU will always be DENEBU.
He's also a much more developed character than you, but hey, let's not get into semantics.
Yeah, anyway, after stating that she wanted to learn more about Kapard and eventually find his brightness, Hikaru managed to unlock her twinkle imagination and proceeded to curb stomp the poor guy, eventually neutralizing him with the happy shower shining, star punch. Yeah, I'm making the same face as this guy right now. And they defeated him with the Fuakol chant. Hikaru tried to comfort her adversary, but he was dragged back into the hands of his reptilian master. Thus, the episode ended with Kapard being forced into the next phase of Darkness's plans, so much for that nice boss title. And Hikaru looked up at DENEBU, but now finally started to realize that it might disappear soon if they didn't do something.
Alright, I'll say right now, this episode by itself is actually quite good. It has some great Isao Murayama-packed writing. But, and this is something I've been wanting to say for a long time, Hikaru Hoshina is no Miyuki Hoshizora.
You might have picked up on my less than subtle hints throughout this review, but really, this whole arc feels like they were trying to do the Ultra Decor arc from Smile Pretty Cure, with the Cures fighting their supposed rivals, with both parties eventually developing their characters by the end. However, while Smile succeeded for the most part in developing all of their characters, I'd argue only 2 from this series truly succeeded. And that's a real shame because the story this week was genuinely really good. I love the idea of using the summer triangle to represent characters. The concept of DENEBU representing a strong, independent force that watches over others is a great idea. However, when it's applied to Hikaru Hoshina, it can also represent something that never changes. That is, and always has been, my biggest gripe with this character, and it didn't have to be the case. Part of the problem stems from the show's many different non-Murayama writers not knowing what sort of personality to give Hikaru besides her default pink lead personality. Another was the underusage of a certain old mentor character for her. As I mentioned, we hadn't seen Ryo for a long time in this show. I think his last significant appearance was in the aforementioned episode 22, where they hinted at his history with Hikaru's grandfather. So then, why exactly did it take 23 episodes before they addressed it with this very touching little story and could have developed Hikaru's character much sooner? But they didn't, and because of it, I think she has been lacking a significant character motivation throughout this series. As a result, this attempt at turning her into Miyuki 2.0 didn't work out in my opinion, even though they brought in Smile's main director Takashi Otsuka to do the storyboarding this week. And while I wouldn't call Miyuki the most fleshed out pink ever, she did have very clear motivations throughout her series, as well as a strong rivalry with Wolfrude, who was the foil to many of her ideals. Hikaru only just got her DENEBU characterization in this episode in order to become a proper foil to Kapard and his nihilistic views. He had more of a proper rivalry with Lala, hence why I keep saying her episode was the best of this arc. I am just beyond frustrated with Hikaru Hoshina because I can see what they wanted to do with this character, but as has always been the case with this show, poor planning has left us with only an outline of what could have been.
Next week, most Japanese television, including Precure, will be taking a break due to New Year's. But you can still expect content from me, as I will be releasing the second part of my Symphogear GX review. Yeah, I know I'm kind of jinxing myself by saying this, but it is almost done, so it should be out just about in time for Christmas. Look forward to it whenever it comes out. Until then though, happy holidays my friends, and looks like I'm taking a different train home today.